Today, people think of New York City as the city that never sleeps, a bustling, sprawling, urban jungle. But it wasn't always like this. In the 1700s, many parts of the city were not much more than interconnected villages. But in the early 1800s, everything changed. Immigration to New York skyrocketed, especially from European nations due to Europe's economic hardships and job opportunities in America. The city's population density increased, and with it, the quality of life fell. People wanted a place to escape the filthy streets. In 1853, the New York State Legislature passed the Central Park Act, which permitted the creation of Central Park, a spacious public place for the entire city to enjoy, a pivotal turn in New York's history.
Think about immigration to America, it really begins in the colonial period. America's this wide open colonial outpost. The original immigrants to America, certainly in the early 19th century, are essentially add-on cargo.
The years in which a trend of increased immigration was present is a period now known as the First Great Wave of Immigration. Population in New York City rose from 75,000 all the way up to 5 million in less than a century, a nearly 7,000% increase in population to the tiny amount of land. This rapid growth overcrowded the city, leading to unsanitary conditions and poor living environments. The city faced the responsibility of managing its expanding population, but limited space and the unbearable sanitation made it difficult to accommodate the influx of immigrants. From 1800 to 1910, density in Manhattan tripled, going from 200 to 600 people per hectare. Chinatown, the Lower East Side, and the East Village were places where the density approached about 1,600 people per hectare. Due to the lack of available land and wealth, many immigrants had to live together in small tenement houses with other immigrant families in order to cope with the issue. These rough living conditions did nothing but displease the people living in the city, making them miserable to death. People needed to change, and they needed it fast. The passage of the Central Park Act marked the beginning of this revolutionary change. Although the creation of Central Park required significant public investment and displaced existing communities, it became a transformative example of balancing the city's responsibility to provide public green spaces with residents' rights to recreation and improved living conditions, because it addressed the challenges of urban overcrowding and set a precedent for urban planning across the United States. This is the story of how the opening of Central Park came to be and the continuing impact it's had to this day. As years passed, more immigrants came into the city, making it increasingly crowded and squalid. People grew frustrated with spending their lives in cramped, filthy tenement housing units. So in 1853, the New York State Legislature decided to address this by passing the Central Park Act, reserving spacious parkland where the public could walk freely and experience nature outdoors, away from their poor living conditions. This law allowed New York City to purchase land between 59th and 106th Street and 5th and 8th Avenue. To oversee the park's development, the Central Park Commission was formed. Their responsibilities included supervising construction and selecting a design for the park. In 1858, Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux submitted their Greensward Plan, which focused on creating a pastoral landscape in the English Romantic tradition. Their goal was to bring New Yorkers together by encouraging them to experience the beauty of nature, something rarely felt in the busy, crowded city. Though the passage of the Central Park Act gave many people hope that New York City would become a better environment, people living in a village known as Seneca Village had a different view to the act. Central Park was seen as a green space for everyone to enjoy, but it wasn't as simple as that. The Seneca Village was founded in 1825 when two farmers, John and Elizabeth Whitehead, split their farmland into 200 lots and sold them to people. Nestled between 82nd and 89th Streets, Seneca Village was more than just a collection of homes. It was a beacon of opportunity. For African American residents, land ownership in the village provided access to voting rights and economic stability, while its churches and schools fostered a sense of belonging and upward mobility. Central Park was created with the use of eminent domain, a legal procedure allowing the city to forcibly remove residents from their homes, prioritizing the responsibility to create a public space over the rights of those who had built lives there. Andrew Williams, an African American who bought land from John and Elizabeth Whitehead, was forced to leave and find somewhere else to live due to the eminent domain.
He immediately protested about the takeover, first of all, but it seemed as though he felt his property was worth about $4,000.
He responded to that request with a counter stating I should be at least given this much money. Unfortunately, that was not an agreement that was made, and they were actually given way less money and forced to leave the park.
City leaders argued that the park was essential to address overcrowding, improve public health, and provide recreation for New Yorkers. While many people embraced the park as a shared civic benefit, critics questioned the ethics of sacrificing a community for the greater good. The park's opening in 1859 brought thousands of people together, which symbolized a turning point in urban planning and the tension between individual rights and collective responsibilities. The opening of Central Park brought new perspectives and changed many people's lives. Central Park was seen as a democratic space symbolizing freedom by people, as it was accessible to every single citizen no matter their color, class, or creed. Although there was some degree of racial segregation and gender discrimination, this tended to be more of a social tendency rather than an actual rule. Thus, many citizens took advantage of the availability of the park, as by 1865, the park received more than 7 million visitors a year. Central Park also provided New York City with a fairly new type of landscaping architecture, showing the sense of escaping the urban city and taking a deep dive into nature. On the flip side, the people of Seneca Village were forced to leave and find someplace else to live, which brought ruin to many lives too. Their freedom was ripped due to Central Park, and their lives changed negatively compared to the others who viewed Central Park as a benefit. Central Park immediately provided the people with rights to a place to relax, exercise, and interact with other people. However, with these rights came the responsibility of maintaining the quality of the park, making sure that the park stays environmentally healthy. Central Park did much more than merely provide the people of New York with a place to relax. Parks constructed later from all around the world took inspiration from Central Park. For example, the designs of Paris's Bois de Boulogne and London's Regent's Park were each influenced by the Central Park's naturalistic landscaping and convenient public accessibility, which expresses freedom. Today, Central Park welcomes over 42 million people to their 843-acre land. Central Park stands as a tourist attraction for people who come to New York City from all around the world. Another long-lasting impact the park has had on our city is how it also adds long-term benefits to the environment, as the construction of the park was provided with more than 18,000 trees. Central Park contributes to more than 1 million pounds of carbon dioxide being removed from the atmosphere each year, thus heavily increasing air conditions for the people. Central Park even brought nearby houses' real estate value to an increase, which can be seen as positive, but also negative, because not everyone in New York City can afford its expensive lifestyle. Finally, even though the city and the people are responsible for treating the park properly, spending nearly $100 million per year towards the proper maintenance of the conditions of Central Park, Central Park is essential to New York City's culture, as it is enjoyed by everyone and gives everyone rights to a natural environment in a crowded space. The opening of Central Park in 1859 marked a turning point in New York City's history, fulfilling the city's responsibility to provide a green space for public recreation and improving urban life. It gave them rights to a place to relax after a long day of work. However, this vision came at the cost of the rights of 225 residents in Seneca Village, made up of African American and Irish immigrants. For many, Central Park was a triumph because it addressed overcrowding and pollution while offering a space for leisure and connection. Yet for the residents of Seneca Village, it represented a profound loss of property, community, and opportunity. This tension between individual rights and societal responsibilities highlights the complexity of progress. Central Park's creation reminds us of the difficult choices required to serve the public good and the human costs of such decisions. Its legacy challenges us to consider how the project balanced the rights of individuals with the responsibilities of society. This marks the end of the story of how Central Park opened in 1859 and its continuing impact today.